My best friend and I made a pact to marry each other if we are still single at 30. The time's here, and only I seem to remember. Hey, Ben. It was Owen, my best friend, and I could tell that even with my eyes closed. I have news for you. I opened my eyes immediately, my heart in my throat. I was nervous, and I wondered if he could see it too. What is it? I asked and wrung my hands together, hoping that this was what I wanted it to be. But Owen was quick to disappoint me. I have a boyfriend, Owen said, sounding genuinely happy. Rex. Oh, I replied, because I couldn't act to save my face. That's nice. Is he the one you keep talking about? God, yes, Owen nodded and sat beside me. The heat was beating down on the left side of my face, and I felt like punching something. Or someone. Precisely and honestly, this Rex guy. Just when things looked like they would finally work out between us during the great crisis that I was already dealing with, this Rex guy came between us. So, well, it made sense that I wanted to punch his face in. But I wouldn't, because Owen was now dating him. Him, and not me. Congratulations? I said. Owen gave me a sweet laugh. Oh God, can't you act happy for me? You never look happy when it comes to these things. It's mostly because I can't see other people happy, I rolled my eyes. Besides that, it's disgusting. What's disgusting? He exclaimed. You're gay. And hate it passionately, I replied. I didn't hate it. I was nearly 30. I was long past all the internalized homophobia that I harbored in my younger years. But imagining Owen with any other guy than me at our big age of 29 was disgusting indeed. Mostly, it was because I had spent several years passionately imagining us together, married at 30. This news about Owen's new relationship was disheartening, to say the least. It wasn't like I wasn't happy for him. If Owen was happy with Rex, so it would be. I wasn't going to challenge that. But it would have been nice to not be left behind. Have you got a new boyfriend? He asked. I shook my head. I have been keeping my cool about it, I replied. Then, when Owen didn't say anything, I hurriedly added, honestly, now that you're dating too, maybe I should return to my old habits. He made a face. I glared at him. Don't feel sorry for me. Why are you trying to not put in the effort? Owen asked. You know that's an important part of any relationship. I will do that when my favorite guy comes into my life. And who's that? He raised an eyebrow and then looked down at his phone. Never mind, Rex is calling me. I should go and meet him. I waved him away. Bye, Owen. Bye, Ben. Darling, he added as an afterthought. A few days later. Aha! I knew it! If there was one thing common between Owen and me, it was the fact that all our previous boyfriends had been nothing if not utter maniacs. Be aware, though, that I was not laughing at Owen's current boyfriend, but rather at the absurdity of it all. It wasn't even a few days after he informed me about his new boyfriend that I met the said boyfriend. Rex was handsome. I hated to admit that, but it was true. He was tall, dark, and broody, the typical hot male. But instead of the soft, charming self that I expected out of him, he turned out to be an utter fool. Plus, it was obvious that he hated Owen for being Owen. It was absurd to see that Owen was blind to it all. Even so, I decided to give him the chance that Owen promised Rex needed. He is shy, Owen said behind Rex's back. Please be kind to him, Ben. I know we all love your sarcasm, but please, for me? For him only, I tried, and I felt foolish for that. Rex talked about nothing but money. His family had generational wealth, and he loved being a part of it, and it was obvious. It is the first time I have been here, Rex said, and looked around the shop. It was a nicely made restaurant, but Rex did not look impressed. I shared a small eye contact with Owen and then returned my eyes to Rex. But I prefer Michelin stars. You can trust them with everything. "This is nice too," I replied. "It's okay," Rex nodded, and Owen gave me an awkward smile. A single plain sandwich here cost $64. What was he talking about? As much as I hated to admit it, his first impression on me was incredibly bad, and that was not all. Soon after the restaurant incident, something else happened, and that was the thing that forced me to tell Owen, "Owen, I think you can get a better man." Rex was manipulative. He handled Owen as if he were a piece of furniture instead of an actual fully grown human being with his own sense of self and identity. "I think you should hang around my friends more," Rex said to Owen. "You'll get used to actually nice things." "Ben is nice," Owen replied. And to say that we were out for a luncheon was insane. I stood in the corner and listened in on their conversation like a stupid child. "Yeah, but you can do better," Rex implored. There was a furrow between his brows, and he looked upset already. God, I wonder how I could whack him on the back of his head. "Rex, you don't have to tell me who I can hang out with and who I cannot," Owen said. And then he said some more. But at the end of the conversation, Rex won. Owen and he left, Owen's hand encased perfectly well in Rex's hand. I stood there watching as Rex and he got in his expensive car and rolled away. Yes, this was it. This was how I was going to be forgotten right when I expected that at the least. A few days later. Owen called me a few days after our meeting with his boyfriend and claimed that he was annoyed by his new boyfriend's behavior. I sent him a series of question marks in our chat, some moments later after he abruptly hung up. He called me in the evening when both of us were free from our office hours. "He is so annoying," Owen said over the other side. "What happened?" I asked, even though I wasn't interested in hearing any more about Rex. That guy never looked like good news. But Owen sounded like he needed an ear, and if I wasn't going to be that, then I shouldn't be anything else either. Did he do something? "He is annoying," Owen insisted and repeated. "I made him some of his favorite sandwiches, and he threw them away just because one of them was burnt." "That was uncalled for," I said. Owen hummed from the other hand, his voice sounding distressed. "I don't know, Ben. It feels like Charlie 2.0. Charlie was his boyfriend number 2. Rex was the third one. "Break up with him," I replied. "Better to get out of a new relationship like this than wait and see, right?" Right. That sounded like a good suggestion. But Owen didn't look like he wanted to take it. "Ben, I think he will get better. Rex is not a bad guy. He just needs a little understanding and patience. Lots of it." I rolled my eyes. I was bereaved to mention that my best friend was one of those people who thought they could fix their abusive partners, for whatever reason on top of that. My feelings for Owen and his boyfriend must seem passionate. I was Owen's best friend after all, but there was only so much I was supposed to feel for him. But that wasn't the truth. My feelings, my love, in fact, went a long way for him. Years ago, when we were still younger, in our late teens, Owen and I had come to realize pretty quickly that our relationships with guys weren't going very great. We were basically touch-starved. During those moments, Owen and I often kissed to make up for some non-existent dating lives. And it felt good. Oh, how good it felt to kiss him and hold him. Then we got a little older, and we were still unlucky with boyfriends. Although, it was true that we were getting some proposals. In annoyance and drunk out of our wits, Owen and I decided that if we were still single by the time we turned 30, we would marry each other. We were happy at that thought. We clicked pictures to prove that it happened and then wrote each other several notes in our drunken state. I had one with me, one that I often looked at in my loneliness. As pathetic as it sounded, I held on to his drunken promise like a fool. Not once in all these years did I have a steady relationship. Why? Precisely because I wanted to make it to the end with Owen. Not with anyone else, but only with Owen. Now, our 30th birthday was approaching, and it felt like only I remembered that particular moment. It was disheartening, and honestly, I resented Owen for forgetting that. Not a lot, but a little bit, out of my own pettiness. Owen was also the reason that I focused more on one-night stands than actual relationship building with a nice guy. And honestly, I couldn't fault Owen for that. I was the sappy fool between us, not him. So, that was my part of the story. If Owen ever felt like it, maybe he would tell his own part someday. Until then, it was all me. The morning after the little conversation that we had, Owen called me again. "Did you see the final invitation?" he asked. I did. I hadn't. So, I checked out the group chat and found one of our mutual friends, Anne, had just sent us an invitation to her wedding. I clicked on it and quickly checked the name. She was marrying Susie. Huh? I didn't know she was a lesbian. I remembered her announcing her marriage to the love of my life a couple of months ago. It had completely slipped my mind, but I still hadn't known that she was a lesbian. What else did I not know? "It's exciting," Owen exclaimed. "I want to attend it. Will you come? I'm bringing Rex with me and will officially introduce him to the group." I rolled my eyes. "I am coming. Alone," I added. "Oh, Ben, bring a date with you." "Not interested. Thanks for the suggestion." And that was our next destination and the beginning of a new problem. A week later, I was wearing a three-piece suit. I had kept my tuxedo for special occasions only, and that meant my marriage. Hopefully with Owen. Owen and Rex were dressed in not-so-simple three-piece suits as well, and I couldn't for the life of me look away from Owen. God, it was insane how much I wanted him to be mine. I wondered how bad it would be if I reminded him of our promise. Would he care? Would he dismiss it as a stupid teenage thing we had going? I had built my personality around that little promise so much that treading on waters outside sounded like a very scary thought. I wasn't going to threaten my own identity like that. I kept mum about that. "Hey, Owen," I called, waving at Owen. Owen left Rex behind and immediately greeted me with a hug. "You look handsome, see? This is why I tell you suits suit you." "And you look gorgeous," I breathed and stared at him in awe. He was indeed the most gorgeous human being I had ever beheld. Sometimes in the mornings, I wondered how nice it would be to wake up next to him. "You're really here with him, huh?" "Don't hate him so much, Ben." I rolled my eyes. Hard to do that. Impossible. Owen gave me a little adorable laugh, sounding just a tad bit guilty. At that moment, it was almost like we understood the problem. Like Owen dating Rex was an inside joke. It was funny when I thought of it in that way. "Rex was saying that we are going to hold our wedding just like this." Owen wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Rex. I told him it's a nice setting. The smile immediately dropped from my face. I decided where I was going to spend the rest of the evening. The bar. And so I did. By the time the wedding vows were over, I was drunk out of my mind. The after party was held, and I was on the floor, a drink in my hand. Worse yet, I knew I was flirting with someone. With whom? I couldn't tell. I was out of my wits, but I flirted and nearly kissed the man in front of me too. Something shifted suddenly after that, and the next time I found my consciousness, I was in bed with someone. The sunlight streaming through the window told me it was morning, and I assumed the wedding night was over. It was a stranger lying on the bed. I didn't know who he was, and he looked old. He looked to be in his 50s. I looked at him in horror, and then at my naked self in horror. I knew we had done the deed. I was feeling ache all over my body, but the fact that I was blackout drunk during the entire act, the fact that I didn't even remember leaving the venue with this grandpa of a man, brought tears to my eyes. Why hadn't Owen stopped me? I stumbled into the washroom, vomited, washed my mouth and face, and then dressed quietly. I was devastated. Did Owen not think of me at all? Did he not think of me at all that I left with a guy nearly my dad's age? By the time I walked out of the room, I was crying. A few days later. I didn't call Owen after that, and Owen didn't call me either. I wondered why. Shouldn't he explain himself, or at least apologize to me for leaving me with a stranger when I was out of my mind? But no such thing came. The previous night, after the office hours, I had left our pictures and notes from the past all over the floor, because I was still distraught over that night and upset with Owen. I left them at that. I decided not to acknowledge them at all, and it was then that Owen arrived at my place unannounced. It was Saturday, so off for both of us. He was standing at my door with a packet in his hand. When I opened the door, he waved the packet at my face, looked all over me, and said, "I brought food." I knew something had happened. I could see a gash on his bottom lip. My heart immediately trembled, and I forgot about that night. "What happened?" I asked. Owen shrugged. "Some stupid argument. It got rough." I grabbed his shoulder and turned him to face me. His eyes were swollen red, and I knew the past few days hadn't been kind to him either. I wondered if any of it was because of me. "Did he hit you?" Even the thought of that made me angry. "I hit him first," Owen answered, and gave me a small laugh along with it. "He was getting annoying, saying stuff that he shouldn't, and all that jazz. I asked him to shut up, but he called me a bad word. I got very upset, so I hit him, and then he hit me back," he shrugged. "Both guilty, honestly." "But why?" I asked. At that, Owen didn't have an answer. Not for now, at least. I sighed and told him that he needed to get away from that man. "Unless you want me to deal with him," I suggested. "I will deal with him, Ben." I sighed and wondered if I should inform him about anything. I could. There was no reason for me to hide anything. "I woke up with this guy. Man, honestly. He probably looked to be in his 50s. I stopped and shook my head. I avoided looking at Owen. "I don't even remember it." "You were flirting with him," Owen answered. I looked at him. "Come again?" Owen shrugged. "You were flirting with the guy." He stopped for a moment, and there was absolute silence then. His eyes fixed on something behind me, and I knew what he was looking at even before I confirmed it. "Actually, Ben, you were flirting with me," he said finally. "Were you looking at our pictures?" He got off the couch and walked towards the pictures I'd left on the floor. I didn't know what to panic about. "What do you mean I was flirting with you?" I asked. "You were drunk," he said. "I understand why it happened, but..." He stopped and looked at the pictures and the notes. "But I wonder if it was all because of that only." "What do you mean I was flirting with you?" He turned to me. "You were drunk, Ben. You were flirting with me. Then Rex came and left you with the guy you slept with. You were drunk, so you probably didn't notice." "You left me with a guy of my dad's age?" I asked, upset now that he had confirmed my suspicions. He was guilty. Tears threatened to spill over my cheeks again. "I want you to leave, Owen." "Ben," Owen called out, "talk to me, please." "Leave," I said, and opened the door for him. "Please." "Ben?" he said softly. "Please," I begged, and he did. A few days later. I didn't want to go anywhere, so I stayed at home. I asked for a 2-day leave from my boss, and he acted like I'd asked for half of the company's shares. I didn't care. I needed the holiday to deal with my heartbreak. But Owen wasn't ready to leave me in peace. He called, he messaged. For 2 days straight, I did not bother to check either of that. I did that on the 3rd day, however, because there was only so much restraint that I could show when it came to Owen. His last message read, "I was drunk too, Ben." And that was how I knew he wasn't at fault. I asked him if he wanted to hang out at my place, and he replied that he would love to do that. And that was how he was back at my place in less than a week. "I was drunk," he said. "I hadn't noticed anything until Rex told me the next morning. It was why I called you several times in the morning. I couldn't after that. I was ashamed. I'm sorry, Ben. I should have been more careful." I shook my head at his apology. It wasn't his fault. "Is that why you guys fought?" I asked. Owen nodded. "That was one of the reasons, yes." "I'm sorry." "God, why are you sorry?" he asked and sat down beside me. at some distance. It wasn't your fault, Ben. None of it was your fault. I had been foolish to stay with him. I saw the red signs and I thought it should get better someday. And it mostly was, but he stopped and shook his head. Anyway, I've broken up with him, so that's over. I want to punch him, I confessed. Don't worry, I did that for both of us. Then, he showed me his bruised knuckles. I laughed at him in disbelief. What? He asked. He has done worse. This was the least he deserved. He stopped and turned around. Where are the pictures? What pictures? I asked. He punched me in the arm. Ben, the pictures. He grabbed his sling bag and looked in it for a while before muttering a soft, Aha! What is it? I asked. I have got the note. What note? I asked, even though I knew what he was talking about. Here, he said and gave me the note. No, it wasn't what I was expecting, but it was one of the many notes that we shared during our early 20s. It was simple, short, and sweet. It read, Screw you. I laughed at him. He had scored more than me in our math exam, and that was my response to him. You still have it? I asked. I have lots of them, he answered and shrugged. Also, he said and grabbed something from his bag, I have brought food. What's your obsession with bringing me food? I knew you were upset, he answered. And I also know you don't eat when you're upset. I don't want you to die just yet, Ben. I smiled at him. You're such a caring friend. That I am. A few days later, all the bittersweet reconciliation aside, I wondered if Owen remembered the actual promise we made all those years ago. If he'd found so many notes, there was no way in hell that he hadn't found the one I had been looking at for much of my adult life. But Owen gave me no such signs, at least not in the ways that I recognized them. Because we were still working adults and we did not have generational wealth to fall back on, the only option we had left was to either meet after our office hours or on weekends. We met each other almost every other weekend. When the plan wasn't about hanging outside, it was hanging inside. And we did that with passionate feelings. Often it involved gaming or watching our favorite YouTubers play games. Yes, that was important, honestly. A very important part of being human. God, Owen said, and not for the first time. I should buy this. It isn't fun, I said. Outlast is. He gave me a loud laugh. Outlast is old, dude. Get over it. It was amazing, I insisted instead. Never move on from it, Owen. Owen made a face at me. It was just gore. Fun. It was fun. I looked outside the window and at the rapidly darkening sky. I cannot believe we used our Saturday for this. Tomorrow's Sunday, and then Monday again, I moaned in distress. He gave me a small laugh. Maybe we can go back to old times. What does that mean? He shrugged. I have found some stuff. My heart raced. That sounds good, I replied. He nodded with a small smile. Yes, it does. A few days later, Owen still hadn't come with the note. I wasn't sure if he couldn't find it or he didn't want to deal with that right now, given his recent disastrous relationship with a particular man. If the latter was the case, then I understood. I'd need a lifetime to deal with the horror of being with someone like Rex too. But Owen's 30th birthday was fast approaching, and I was growing worried. A few weeks after Owen's birthday, it would be mine. To think that it would pass without Owen ever acknowledging the note was killing me. Should I ask him about it? Against my better judgment, I decided not to. And there was a good reason too. For one thing, Owen and I started spending a lot of time together. I was not even kidding. We were spending so much time together it was insane. It was no longer about meeting just on weekends or after office hours. Now, we talked during office hours too. We either messaged each other or left calls. The other one would reply whenever he got the time. By the time the second week rolled in, I grew comfortable with this particular routine. In fact, I anticipated it. I bought a dog, Owen announced over the call. Oh my god. I know, right? He replied. It's Maltese. I'm naming him Rex. I laughed at that and he giggled in return. That's funny. He hummed from the other end. I have wanted to have one since forever. I told Rex the same, but he wanted something huge. He wouldn't agree to it, and said they were annoying little things. Has he ever seen himself in the mirror? I asked. Exactly, he giggled from the other side. Can I see Rex? I asked. Okay, I'll bring him to you today. Okay, I replied, smiling against my phone. He sounded like he was smiling too. Okay, Ben. A few days later. Owen's birthday was 2 days later, and I was growing nervous. It wasn't about what I was going to gift him, but rather if he would acknowledge the note. Oh God, I knew repeating it was annoying, but I couldn't hold it any longer. The more I interacted with Owen, the more I wanted to be with him. Each time that thought came into my head, I couldn't help but wonder how nice it would be to wake up next to him each morning every day for the rest of my life. That was 50 years, give or take. God, I was in love with my best friend, and I couldn't help but wonder if he felt the same. We could be his dads, Owen said, looking at Rex instead of at me. He is almost like a baby. You have to take care of him so much. My heart was in my throat. That sounded like a family. Would you like to raise him with me? Owen asked, still not looking at me. If you haven't suddenly grown allergic to cute little things, that is. I am excited to be a dad, I announced. Owen gave me a small laugh. I knew it. You look like someone who'd take responsibility for their actions. I suppose. Yeah. And that was how I became Rex's dad along with Owen. 2 days rolled in quicker than I expected. It was Owen's birthday, and we celebrated it first at his parents' home, and then together on his balcony. I had brought with me a mini cake, enough for the both of us, and gifted him his favorite brand's watch. He had been whining over owning one for a long time. Thank you so much, he said, and gave me a quick kiss on my cheek. I froze for a solid minute. I didn't know how to react to that. It was almost like the Wattpad stories that I grew up reading. I was younger and foolish then and imagined these kind of moments for myself. Now I was older and allegedly wiser, and I still often imagine these kind of moments for myself. Now that it had finally happened, I wasn't sure if there was a proper way of reacting to any of it. What? He asked and gave me a small laugh. I rubbed my cheek like the loser that I knew I was. Nothing. Ben, he said suddenly. I hummed and looked down at the clasped hands on my lap. What? Ever since I have known you, you have made me feel special. His voice was teary, and it looked like he would cry anytime soon. As if we were interlinked in some ways, my heart started beating fast, too. I felt as if I would start crying soon. It's such a nice feeling. Feeling important, he added. I tried to look for the same in every relationship I've had for so many years, but only you made it look easy. You always make it look so easy, Ben. I am glad, I answered. I hope you feel the same with me, Ben, he confessed. I couldn't help but nod. You do make me feel that, and more. A few days later. Was that a confession on Owen's part? I didn't know. It almost sounded like one, however, so I took it as one. Now that I decided to live in my delusion, it was hard to do anything to spoil my mood. Even my boss couldn't make my day bad. It was easier to tolerate him. He was still bad, but now it was easier to tolerate him. Just like the last few weeks, the next week rolled in smoothly as well. Then the next did. Then another. Before I knew it, I had turned 30. I was officially an old man. I could cry with happy tears, so I did. But in Owen's arms. I did that for 2 reasons. One, to remind him that I was 30, and that he needed to remember one particular promise. Second, to hug him. It always felt nice hugging him, and he fit so perfectly in my arms. It was insane. It's all right, he said, and rubbed my head. I am older than you. I will grow old soon, and then I will die, I bemoaned. Owen patted me on my back. Hopefully, with me. I looked at him. Why would you say that? Well, I will die someday too. He clicked his tongue with a smile and then grabbed something from his pocket. He handed me a note, and I knew what it was. I know you were probably waiting on this for a long time, but let me explain myself. He took a deep breath. I was scared, Ben, Owen began. Worried as hell because I couldn't think of a day when I would want to wake up knowing that you were not my best friend. Each time I looked at this note, I feared that I'd lose my best friend. I rubbed my finger over the words on the said note. The words were simple and read in my silly writing. The moment we turn 30 and are single, we are marrying each other. God, we are marrying. You will never lose me, I told him. Owen gave me a small nod. But you have to understand, I was scared. I was so scared, in fact, that I couldn't explain it now. What changed then? I asked. I'd rather give us a chance than waste my time on people like Rex. I gave him a small laugh. God, that was a mistake. An honest mistake, he promised. What do you want now? For years, I'd waited for this particular moment. Now that it was here, I didn't know how to deal with it. I could start it all with a kiss. I wanted to start it with a kiss, but I wasn't sure still, not sure if he wanted to kiss me. Owen sucked on his bottom lip for a while. I want to kiss you. Is that a confession? I asked. He huffed out a laugh. We can start from there. Is that my gift? I couldn't help but ask. He remembered. He remembered and he knew. He was just waiting for the right time and for his heart to calm down. He was worried, afraid, that he'd lose his best friend. He was worried that he'd lose me. I couldn't fathom the thought. Well, besides the PlayStation, sure. I gave him a small smile and then leaned down to angle my head against his. Owen waited a few moments before he kissed me. When I was sure he wouldn't step away, I kissed him back. A few days later. Well, it was for certain that we weren't going to marry at 30, but there was another thing for certain, and it was that we were going to start dating at 30. If there was one thing clear, it was probably that it was never really too late. There was no such thing as too late, at least not in our case. Mine is bigger. It was Owen. I waved his claims away. Mine is cozy, I replied and stretched out my hands to point at each corner of my house. It was indeed a little smaller in size than Owen's, but there must be a reason we hung out at my place more than his. In passing, Owen had often said that he felt lonely in his too big house. We have a baby now, Owen insisted with a small laugh. And we can do something for Rex too, I replied and pointed to the living room. The living room was big enough for Rex. Owen clicked his tongue and slipped on the couch with me. Well, we have months to go, so we can wait on this one. I don't mind, I replied and rubbed my hand on his head. How long were you pining? Owen asked and looked at me carefully to gauge my reaction. I blushed a little. Long enough that it hurt to think you weren't noticing me, I replied. His smile dropped, so I quickly grabbed him around his jaw. Hey now, don't get worried. I hurt you, he said, and I don't hold it against you. You were scared. Still doesn't justify anything, he murmured. I love you anyway, I said. He smiled at me and grabbed my hand to kiss my palm. I love me too. I laughed at him and pulled him in for a kiss. Well, things started between us somewhere along the way. I was already in love with Owen. It was him who needed to work his way around to fall in love with me, and with the way things are going, that isn't too far either. And I'm glad, honestly. Owen and I haven't shifted together just yet, in fear that we are still too fresh into the relationship to make such a big decision. But we meet so often that we may as well be living together. The end. Have you ever been in love with a friend? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.